been a steel worker for all of my life. I've scratched out a pittance for my darling wife, but now they have told me no more I may toll, condemned with my sons to a life on the dole. Sad men on the corners, their beards grown so long, come stand proud, me lads, sing a victory song. The red dust will vanish, the mills roll no more. The masters have said we must now close the door.
Dennis Meadows, condemned to a life on the dole. Is that how you see it?
That's precisely what's happening in Consett from 2 o'clock today. There's 3,500 men will be off this plant, and in effect, they have no job prospects whatsoever.
Here you are on the last day of Consett with just an hour or so before it closes. How do you feel?
It's imminently trading, quite honest. It's sold out at the end of the day by the British Steel Corporation.
A year ago today, the last charge of steel was made at Consett, and the heart was ripped out of this one industry town. Consett became a symbol of Britain's industrial decline, a field day for newsmen, a honeypot for sociologists, and a chronic headache for government ministers. In this program, we'll examine the many positive efforts being made to bring new work to the area. And we'll also show what mass redundancy does to a town and to its people. Today, 3,700 men received their redundancy notices.
You see, they haven't even got the decency to refer to you as dear Mr. Carter. They've got dear Carter. Says, I regret to inform you that as a result of the cessation of operations at Consett Works.
We'll follow the fortunes of two of these men, Arthur Carter and Bill Thompson.
Thank you for your service to Consett Works. Please accept my good wishes for the future. In reference to that, lads, but please accept my good wishes for the future. And I would say in stronger terms than what you could put on this television program. I don't accept the good wishes of the British Steel Corporation. They've crucified the Consett Works. They pulled us down off the cross, and they're not really prepared just to be saddled to that. They want to kick you in the head, kick you in the guts, and rub salt at the bloody wound as well.
I cannot at this time move away from the area because I have a boy already serving an apprenticeship with the local authority, and that would mean he would have to be uprooted as well. So we have to stay in this area and find what is going, if there's anything going. And I mean, we can't see anything at this point. Nothing. Totally nothing.
I'm going to live in what is virtually going to become a ghost town because there's no investment coming into it. I have no prospect of a further job. No prospect of a further job. I'm going to be faced a prolonged period on the dole. My wife is expecting our first child in January, first week in January. I just don't know what to do.
We're not going to come out and go to an ice cream factory or a Cadbury's milk tray factory or something like that. It's got to be something connected with the heavy industry because the years we've worked in it, this is what we know.
We aren't people that put eyes into teddy bears or make buttons. We are steel makers. We are heavy engineering-based industry in this town. And that's the type of work that we know about and that we want.
For 140 years, Consett's sole reason for existence has been the iron and steel industry. With ironstone, limestone and coal on its doorstep, it flourished when other steelworks in the area foundered. It was always the first to introduce the latest technology, and in its heyday employed over 7,000 people. The men working close to the hot metal round the clock were a new breed of industrial aristocrats, earning high wages for dangerous and difficult work. By the 1970s, their future was doomed. The men accepted cuts in their workforce and broke production records. But it was no use. When the closure was announced, they organized a campaign to try and save the works. Bill Thompson was one of the stewards, and Arthur Carter one of the few who actually got into number 10.
There's that one with lad, over here.
But their march to London in July last year had no effect. The men of Consett were told there was no demand for their steel. It was too expensive to make. The iron ore had run out long ago, and Durham could no longer supply them with cheap coal. Over the last 30 years, 17,000 mining jobs have gone, and the district's last pit was closed in June 1980. One of the few remaining pit heads is now the centerpiece of an industrial museum at Beamish, only 7 miles away from Consett. The museum is now the third largest employer in the area, and redundant miners now spend their lives as guides to parties of school children. An industrial historian at Beamish feels that the same economic pressures that killed off the mines are now threatening the whole community of Consett.
As a local person brought up in that area, I think a lot of people expected Consett to finish it at some time. That was an established fact of our schooling, that you dragged ore and of various things up to Consett, processed it, and then had to drag them back down the coast. That, of course, is economic disaster. Only hope, I would say, we find oil up there. Otherwise, there's very little reason for a community at 1,000 feet on a north-facing slope in this area. Unfortunately, that's a great tragedy for the people of that area.
The scale of the problem is enormous. 10,000 jobs must be created in the next 5 years, just to get unemployment down to the national average. So how do you sell a town like Consett to prospective employers? The town is set out on a limb in the northwest corner of County Durham, a black spot in a grey area of unemployment. With geography weighing so heavily against the town, the inducements to set up a factory here need to be exceptional. And they are. Substantial government grants of up to 40%. New factories rent-free for 2 years. Cheap loans under 10% from a special common market fund. A free feasibility study to help businessmen get grants. Heavily subsidized workforce training. And a free specialist team to make each project happen. Arriving from London is the leader of that team. John Dunbar is chief executive of BSC Industry, the social conscience of British steel, set up to bring new jobs to 11 steel closure areas. Meeting him is Laurie Haveron, John Dunbar's man on the ground in the northeast.
I think we want to encourage them. Yeah, okay, fine.
Consett is their most difficult area, so Dunbar wants to know which companies, if any, are showing an interest in the town.
We've reached a very crucial stage on Stelmo now. We've got our the consultants have put in the report to the Department of Industry, and obviously we're having to wait for the Department of Industry's reaction on the application for regional selective assistance before we can proceed any further.
Stelmo is a Kent-based company that Laurie is trying to woo to the area. They need to expand anyway, and might consider bringing 80 jobs to Consett if the financial package is right. Stelmo makes steel molds for concrete structures and have won massive export orders, including a luxury sports stadium for Saudi Arabia, a giant housing project for Nigeria, and even tank traps for Libya's Colonel Gaddafi. The skills they demand are exactly what Consett can supply in abundance. Just the kind of project the town needs, if they can be persuaded to come.
They are extremely anxious to make sure that they are able to recruit labor immediately, and this is obviously something that we want to encourage. If they delay too long, they're worried in case some of the best labor goes away, which is a natural fear. I don't believe it's necessarily as urgent as they think, because obviously Consett is a very close-knit community, and people are not quite so willing to move as perhaps may consider.
Well, it's a project of the right size.
Yes, indeed.
We need large projects with that sort of number of jobs.
Laurie and John are due to meet the rest of the job-creating team at Consett's Civic Centre. Around the table are representatives from the Department of Industry, the Department of the Environment, Durham County Council, Derwentshire District Council, the Manpower Services Commission and the English Industrial Estates Corporation. But today, this massive team is stunned by the news that 4 more companies have just gone out of business.
What I think is so devastating about this is that we have, 91 vacancies, and here we've had over 500 people go out of work, additional to the steelworks. Yes. Now, we all know how much effort it takes to find 100 jobs, let alone 500. And the problem is going to be very much worse, maybe even than we think.
In the projects of less than...
Another problem is forecasting which companies are likely to turn job promises into real jobs.
So we're talking in total of something like 19, 20 companies with a potential, a maximum potential of 1,500 jobs.
Yes, but I think...
But very guardedly, because
yes,
we know they won't all come, and...
definitely, because the bulk of those jobs that you're talking about, 1,500, the bulk of them are in these 4 or 5 large projects, yes, of which we may only get one, if we're lucky.
Yeah.
We're not talking about jobs which are going to be created all at once.
No.
Even at the maximum level of 1,500, we're talking about a period of over 5 years.
Well, yes, certainly 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Certainly 2 or 3. Yeah.
So in the immediate future, even if we got all those projects, we're only talking about 200 or 300 jobs a year.
Absolutely right.
In fact, that was the number of jobs they lost the previous week.
For the first few weeks, I was just pottering about in the house and the garden and that, and you know, it was a fairly good time. You had plenty. It was like being on holiday. But then the last week you start to get bored. You'd done all the jobs around the house and in the garden, and I was tending to drink too much. I was, you know, just getting up and out to do and going to the club and that, and it was fairly bad.
4 days ago, Arthur Carter managed to get a place on a course at Durham Agricultural College.
I did apply for this course about a month ago, but it was full at the time, but a couple of people dropped off, and I got that information, so I came down myself and seen the principal. I got accepted. It was 3 weeks late when I started, but I seem to be catching up a bit, and it's all right. I'm enjoying it.
If you remember what we were talking about the time before, about the setting then of the penis on the bore, you can see now how it's critical to have that penis set right in the middle part of the bore's underbody, so that we get this action to be right.
It's not like being in the steel plant, is it? I think it's a better chance of getting a job in this than what you have in industry, because there seems to be no industry at all in Britain now. It's shipbuilding, steel, car industry, it's all collapsing, so you might have a better chance in agriculture than you would have in heavy traditional industries.
So Arthur's future is assured, at least until the course ends in the summer. But he's one of the lucky ones. Thousands of others, including his friend Bill Thompson, are discovering the frustration of life without a job.
It's all right, people say, go out and find yourself a job and search for work. We've done this, we've all done this. There's no work in Consett at all. Then there's the other aspect of leaving Consett and finding work. We've heard of various people have travelled down south in various parts of the country where it's exactly the same. Employment in that area, they keep it for people in their own area. They're not going to give it to someone from Consett.
In the end, Bill got himself on a management studies course due to start in January.
Whether I'll find myself suited to the classroom after 30 years in the steel industry as a manual worker, I don't know. It's just something we're just going to have to experience and go through.
The incentive to get on a course is great. Any redundant steelworker will have his salary made up for a year to its former level. But it's not as easy as it sounds. Many ex-steelworkers' education isn't good enough for them to qualify. So Consett Technical College has stepped in by providing basic courses in English and maths.
Here we've got lads that were skilled in their own work, steel workers, highly skilled in their own work, making highly specialised steel. But when they came out of that area, onto the dole, unemployed, we all came out as labourers. So intelligent lads in their own area were having to study again to bring their basic education back up to standard.
But there are very few places on government courses. And by October, less than half of the 600 ex-steel workers who had applied had been accepted.
But now it's 5 to 6, time for Look North, and we start with a new jobs blow for Consett. 2 months after the steelworks closure, another big firm is pulling out, and it could mean unemployment reaching 35%. Ransom Hoffman Pollard, Britain's biggest manufacturer of ball bearings, is to close next year. It'll mean the loss of 1,200 jobs. No actual date has yet been revealed, but when the end does come, it's anticipated it'll mean 1 in 3 people in the area being out of a job.
Yes, he's still expecting to be employing. In fact, he's now gone up on his original forecast, and he expects to have 26 people employed by the end of March 1982.
The task facing Laurie Haveron becomes tougher by the month.
There is an initial prejudice that Consett is a derelict steel town with no hope for the future. We know from experience that once we get people to come and look at us seriously, they are always pleasantly surprised and encouraged by what they see. We are working very hard to overcome that image problem, and we are convinced that we can get 1 or 2 large projects to come to Consett.
One small part of the steelworks was now occupied, but the rest of the 700-acre site was due for demolition. Contracts to pull it down could be worth up to £10 million. Bill Thompson and 10 of his union colleagues saw their chance and decided to form a cooperative.
We decided initially that the main job was, okay, the works were there, they were closed, and they had to be demolished. And we said, who better to demolish than the people who had worked in it? We didn't have the expertise in demolition, such as explosive experts. And we decided to go into partnership with a London-based firm, that we would handle the labour force of Consett, and he would handle the expertise in demolition.
But they would have to wait and see whether the Steel Corporation would accept their tender. The steelworks had been closed for 3 months now. And with the steelworks had gone a whole way of life.
I don't see as much of Arthur as I did. We have a drink at night time and maybe go to some function together, you know. I see him now and again in Consett. A community that's always stuck together and worked together and, shall I say, played together and drank together and socialised together are starting to split up.
On January the 8th, Elaine Carter was born.
When I first heard that Joseph was coming to Consett, I was upset because we'd contacted him twice during our campaign to keep the works open. They ignored us both times. I thought to myself, now here is the criminal returning to the scene of the crime. The reason I came down here this morning was to show me disgust at Keith Joseph's policies. I mean, he put myself and another 3,500 people out of work at Consett, and I didn't think it was right that he should get a free ride through the area.
That Consett will return to relatively decent levels of employment, I am convinced. Why? Because its labour force has got a good reputation, because the factories are going to be provided, they are being provided and will increasingly be provided, and because the time will come when the economy turns up and employers will be looking for ready-made factories with good labour forces available.
That month, yet another ready-made factory made itself available. Ransom Hoffman Pollard's ready-made workforce of 1,200 people was now on the streets. This factory even has its own ready-made bus shelters, waiting for the upturn in the economy.
number of companies have in the past moved into areas outside the main industrial centres and created satellites. One, in fact, did this in Consett, Ransom, Hoffman and Pollard. And during the recession, of course, they suffer like everyone else, and they have to pull back. And very often they pull back into the main industrial areas, such as London and Birmingham, and they pull out of the north and Scotland. And this causes tremendous damage when a major employer who's come in and given great hope to the community then just disappears. And that's why I think in Consett, you've got to base one's strategy on new, expanding businesses and expanding existing businesses.
By now, there were hundreds of people on courses, but for many it was merely a way of keeping off the dole. Bricklayers were training to be plumbers, and plumbers were training to be bricklayers. Inevitably, some people dropped out. Bill Thompson was one of them.
Not been at school for 35 years, I started to think to myself, well, was this going to be my life for the next 3 years, sitting in the classroom situation, listening to the tutors, going home on a night, doing homework, hoping to pass my exam at the end of that year or at the end of that period. And I thought to myself, well, this is something I can't stand for the next 3 years. I'm going to have to look for something else.
And Bill Thompson had received another setback. His cooperative had lost the contract to demolish the works. Companies from outside the area had been brought in, bringing their own labour with them.
We came in second, actually. If we'd had the backing of the local authority and the Durham County and various organisers in Consett, we would have won that tender and we would have got the demolition of the Consett works.
Bill took the opportunity of seeing the works again when a German trade unionist and his wife visited Consett.
Here comes the bride.
The Germans were staying with John Lee, one of Bill's old friends.
Lady used to come down here like this. It's sneaking away.
I was saying, it's so quiet, isn't it? You know, you can't imagine. See, I've never seen it like this. The last time I was in, the last heat and everything was still working. We're running across the top shopping for hot metal. Where's the hot metal at? I think you've seen it working.
Yes, I would like to.
This is a hell of a chance for us to see what's happening down here.
I know.
But this was more than a nostalgic trip. John and Bill, key men in the Consett cooperative, wanted to see for themselves how the demolition work was going.
See that name on there, Jack? Yeah. John, that should have been Durham Dismantlers on there.
Oh, we'll be in.
Sure, we'd have better job than that.
It had been a frustrating few months for the cooperative. There had been no shortage of ideas, but they were still faced with the practical problems of turning a good idea into a viable business.
The problem on top of that is when you're going around trying to get these ideas and establish them, each one that doesn't turn off, that makes the lads more desperate. Again, you know,
for the next one, yeah.
The actual problem is holding that group together until you get something off the ground. You've seen it's quite some time now, since October, and we've been trying all this time to get something off the ground.
We are finding that our running costs are slowly eroding that money that we were putting aside for investment. You know, we're spending money. We've visited London 3 times to meet business associates down there, and that's a difficult situation. We were told that there were grants from different organisations for new businesses, but we're finding it very difficult, you know, to get any cash aid at all.
So what will be happen if the cooperative doesn't work? Well, all of the lads in this cooperative, they were in the fight to see if Consett works. So we acted responsible then, and we're trying to, well, we are acting responsible now and trying to bring work into the area, doing our little bit. But if you're asking that question, I should have think, because I believe it will be in the range of 50% unemployment in this area. Now, most of us have got our crop of gold, our Judas money, and we're all still quite happy. But what happens when we've got no jobs and that money runs out? Now, I'm not going to answer that question for anybody else. I can just surmise what could happen, and it could get nasty.
Well, Thatcher is telling us that people have got to be prepared to accept that times will get harder, the going will get tougher before it gets better. That's difficult for us to accept because switching the television on to watch the Royal Ascot race meeting, the commentator immediately told us on the Tuesday that the crowds were 4,000 up on the corresponding day of last year. He then goes on to explain that lunches cost £13 a head. A bottle of champagne costs £16 per bottle. It costs £40 for a ticket simply to get into the Royal Enclosure. So that we say to ourselves, when Thatcher says that things have got to get tougher and the going's got to get harder, we ask the question, for whom? For us, the masses, but certainly not for the people that have wealth.
Whilst the dust... Bill Thompson was still struggling to find work for the Consett Cooperative. But in the meantime, he had to go out and earn some money.
I collected about 100 people who were interested to have their windows cleaned. And after a period of about 3 weeks, developed up to about 300 houses. Now it's a 3-week space, going around every 3 weeks because the roads become that big. Hello there.
Good morning, Billy.
People want to stop and talk to you, people want to offer you a cup of coffee. Your wage is dependent on time that you work. You've got to work solid to make not an elaborate wage, not a wage that's going to make us rich, but a wage that I can just manage to live on, I would say. And happy enough that I'm not drawing unemployment benefit. There's quite a few ex-steel workers that I knew at work that when I'm going around cleaning windows, that they're there in the home, and I just can't picture how he passes his time away. It must be terrible. How's the college going?
I finished the course.
Finished it?
Oh, you finished it now.
Come off top marks? I'll expect you to.
You know me.
What's happening after this then?
Not a great deal, back on the rock and roll.
Yeah? You want to go to college again?
There's no else to do. There's no more courses. Once you've been on one, that's about your lot, you know. You kind of get... You know, once you've done one tops course, you've got to wait 3 years before you get another one.
Yeah.
So...
There's no other course you can get on, like?
No, there's not.
Fancy start? To bet everything you know. I'll see you anyway. Oh,
It's Arthur's last day on his course at Agricultural College, and a chance to show his family around the farm.
Come. Which do you want?
There's the wall that your daddy built, look. You see it? Tiny wall for first attempt.
It is. It's a good one. Why not make one like that round our office? Just a little one.
Got no stones.
The current recession, from which the county has proved not immune, created special problems in the northwest of the county, particularly in the Consett area. The college has been able to play its small part in helping to alleviate the problem and accepted 14 former British steel personnel onto the National Certificate in Agriculture course. I'm very pleased to report that 4 of these students feature in the awards list today. The 3rd place in the practical work, Arthur Carter from Consett, County Durham.
Remember, you're going into posterity. And did you feel that you wanted to do it, or you had a choice? Farming was your dad. You always tell you that farming was good.
Never been in agriculture before, and I came here, but I thought it was the best thing to do. So I mean, on this course you've got skilled men, and I picture you saying there's 3 skilled men on there.
Yes.
Who could a few years ago get a job in industry anywhere.
Yeah.
No, they just can't, so they've had to turn their hand to something else. So.
Do you think that by getting your certificate today, your farming certificate, that any new fields are going to be open?
I would hope so, but I applied for a job a few weeks ago at a farm near Consett, and the farmer there didn't want to know us because I didn't have enough experience in farming. He said there was that many people out to work in farming that had a lot more experience than somebody who'd just been to college for a year had. But he would rather be employing them, and he said he didn't even take my name. He says that the list he had of people on were far too experienced. So in actual fact, I applied for the advanced certificate.
Yes.
I hope to get that and a couple of craftsman certificates, and that will maybe get us a job in farming. But with the certificate I've got at the minute, and the recession there is, I don't see much hope.
Male unemployment in Consett is officially 30%, but the true figure is probably closer to 40%. People up here have always accepted their fate with quiet dignity. There are no riots in Consett. It's not that sort of place. But what will happen to the next generation? Consett is a town of 32,000 people, dominated by the red roofs of its new bus station. It boasts a brand new sports complex, an impressive civic centre, swimming pool and golf course. It's too big to suffer the fate of the pit villages. But can the community survive the effects of chronic long-term unemployment? The government can provide grants. The common market can fund loans. The council can build new industrial estates, and Laurie's team can advise companies to come. But no one can force industry to move here.
We've had grants in this area now since the 30s, almost consistently, 50% grants for almost any development. And as a local person, it would appear to me that these grants aren't working. And the obvious inference from that is, what place has Consett got in the future?
It's a town of ordinary people, ordinary folk. You can't condemn a place like that. You can't condemn any town, whether it be Consett or anywhere else. You can't condemn those people to a lifetime of unemployment and hope they'll wander off somewhere. Oh no, I don't know what the answer is, but I think that what they should continue to do is to press hard. Indeed, if they can, press harder to bring companies like ourselves into that area.
The problem that I face, and I think every agency connected with job creation in this country faces, is that there are so many job losses every day that when you come home at night and you think, absolutely great, I've got a company that's signed and we're going to have so many more new jobs in the area, you pick up the newspaper, you watch the television, and you find that another company in the area has thrown out maybe more people than you've just got the promises to come into the area. I think this can be very soul-destroying. What I would stress, however, is that it's very important that every effort is made. If no effort is made, nothing will happen. And certainly the morale of these communities depends a lot on the activity of all these agencies.
At the end of the year, we asked Bill and Arthur back to the club where we met them on the day the works closed. They feel that for most people, the worst is still to come.
The majority are still in limbo yet. Some have a little bit of money left, some have more money to come in September. And then a few months after that, when that money runs out again and their courses are finished, that's when the problems start.
I don't think they can do anything else to Consett. They've closed all the pits, they've closed the steel works, they've closed Ransom, Hoffman and Pollard's. They're all the major employers. I mean, the biggest employer around here now, I believe, is the local hospital and the local authority, but they're cutting back on men as well. So they can't do nothing more to Consett. There's nowhere to close. We can only get better from here, I would think.
We would hope.
Merci.